Blessings, fam. It's Ghetto. Salute to you. Hope all is well. My lighting's a little crazy. Please forgive it. Just wanted to do a little quick Bible study real fast. Do Genesis 40. And yeah, gang. I'm always thankful to the Most High for all the blessings He continues to bring into my life. Hallelujah. And forever thankful to the Most High, for the blessings He gives to you, to your family, every day. Hallelujah. Alright, let me see what we can do real fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just wanted to make sure the sound was decent. Lighting leaves something to be desired. We can do it for right now. Just Genesis. Back to the stage. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against his two officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in the war, and he put them inward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued in the season inward. And they dreamed a dream, meaning they were in prison for at least that season plus, right? And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man in his dream in one night. Each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the wards of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And I was about to say Jesus, excuse me. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me, I pray you. And the chief butler told the dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof broke forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, That is the interpretation of it, that 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand. And after the former manner, when thou wast his butler. Essentially, Joseph was saying he's going to get to go back to his job that he previously had after his period of imprisonment and their investigation is over. But think of me when it shall be with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make the mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. I mean, because I ain't do nothing, and I ain't touched that woman. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. It's about to get shaky. The 3 baskets are 3 days, yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head off of thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh off of thee. Excuse me. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants, and he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, and Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. Genesis 41:1. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed. And they fed and they meddled, and behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. So you got these big, fat, husky, plump cows, and you got these real skinny, slender ribs just touching malnourished looking cows standing there, right? And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kind did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kind. So Pharaoh woke. He's having a nightmare, and he slept and dreamed the dream a second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the west wind sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh woke, and behold, it was a dream. So he keeps having this nightmare consistently. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for the magicians of Egypt and all wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. What happened, chief Pharaoh? Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me inward in the captain of the guard's house. He threw me in jail, Pharaoh, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream one night, and I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was with us a young man in Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was, me restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself, because you're going before God. So you got to get him flying linens, you got to clean your beard, your feet got to be clean. You can't just be walking up in there, because Pharaoh is unto a God, to his people. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have a dream, and there is none that can interpret it, and I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. I heard you got the juice, brother. I heard you got the juice. I heard you can make this thing I'm trying to think of. I heard you can elaborate on this for me, brother. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And in the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. They ate them and ate them and ate them, but they were still skinny and sickly. You couldn't even tell they ate them up. So I awoke, nightmare, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good, big, luscious, beautiful ears of corn. And behold, 7 ears, withered, thin, and blasted, with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. Now we're going to have a whole conversation about corn, and corn being in the Bible, and corn being in Egypt, when corn is maize, which is of the Americas. You ain't got to ask me where Egypt is at. I know America is Egypt. Don't play with me. Let's go. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and it was told unto me, and I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto the Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed the Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good and kind are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kind that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and and the famine shall consume the land, and the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the fifth part of the land of Egypt in 7 plenteous years. Essentially, take a fifth of everything you making, everything you growing, and put it away. Tuck that away for the 7 years that everything is good and growing and money stacking, and tuck a fifth away, bro. Put away 20%. This is good saving advice right here. This is good investment advice right here. Have a savings for when things get sketchy. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of the Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. Create stocks, create warehouses, create stash spots to put away all of the food during the good time when we're growing a lot of extra. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, and the land perish not through the famine. We'll be able to survive the famine if we stack away 20% of everything we make in these 7 good years. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh. Yo, this is a great idea. I can see this. I see this vision you saying. This makes sense, Joseph. And in the eyes of his servants, Joseph. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. Yo, I'm going to put you over all this stuff, Joseph. You got the mind for it. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, it's like he made him the CFO of all of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all of the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain on his neck. Joseph up now. He up. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his head or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. And Joseph went out all over the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout the land of Egypt. And in 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the land of the sea very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, a priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of his firstborn son Manasseh, half tribe of Manasseh, for God said, he hath forgotten all my toil and all my father's house. Man. And the name of the second son he called Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction, and the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth or famine began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands. But in the land of Egypt there was bread, because they stacked away, baby. Gotta have that stash. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph, and what he saith to you do. And the famine was over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened up all the storehouses, and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph to buy corn. How they get corn, man? How they get all this corn, man? When corn is indigenous to the Americas, because the famine was sore in all lands. What you talking about, ghetto? Corn is not indigenous to Egypt, to the Americas. Yes, the hell it is. What are you talking about? Corn is indigenous to the Americas. Y'all don't know nothing, man. Y'all a bunch of know nothings, man. Y'all be knowing nothing, man. Like them know nothings, man. Don't make no sense. Growing North American indigenous corn. Domestication and history. Corn, or Zaya maize, also known as maize, is a major worldwide grain crop. This is extension. This is okstate.edu, OSU. I think this is pretty good. Sources: modern maize has been developed from the large diversity of land races that were grown by indigenous groups. All of these land races can be genetically traced back to the domestication of maize in southern Mexico around 9,000 years ago. All of these land races can be genetically traced back to the domestication of maize in southern Mexico. So all corn can be traced back to southern Mexico. All corn, all corn, all corn. All of these can be traced back to southern Mexico. All corn can be. After domestication, the indigenous peoples began to breed maize to suit their needs and trade with their neighbors. Maize continued to spread north and south across the Americas while developing a broad range of traits. Figueroa et al. 2008. A widespread form of the intercropping used corn, beans, and squash plants together, known as the Three Sisters, because corn and beans and squash are all indigenous to the Americas, as widely adopted by many Native Americans. So they would grow them together, and the beauty of growing plants together and cross-pollinating them is that they get to help each other keep the land nourished enough to keep recycling and regrowing the plants. Because if you put too much of just one plant in the soil, the Native Americans understood that would rob the soil eventually of a particular strain of its nutrients that plant needs to grow and grow and grow. So you put different plants in the soil together so they all have a system of replenishing one another's needed nutrient supply. Man, it's known as the concept as the Three Sisters. I'm gonna keep going though. Was widely adopted by many Native Americans. While this practice was widespread, it was not ubiquitous, as some tribes included other species or omitted one of the Three Sisters. Some tribes would put even other seeds with it, right? Some tribes also grew maize by planting in mounds on river floodplains without any clear record of intercropping. So they didn't. Some maize requires a lot of nutrients, exactly why the importance of putting it with other plants and other seeds is really a wise decision. Rotting fish and other organic fertilizers were used. This is quoted by Ganella, 2007. Once Europeans arrived in the Western Hemisphere, they began to breed land races together to suit their preferences. The varieties that were established before the rise of modern hybrids are now considered heirloom varieties, or like the OG classical varieties of corn. There is rising interest amongst home gardeners and farmers market producers to grow land races and recent heirloom varieties. You see a lot of different types of corn coming back onto the market now. Different colors of corn and all that stuff is being made very popular now. If you go shopping in the grocery store, you'll see that there is a rising interest of this. The information in this report is to aid those who are interested in growing indigenous maize or land race maize. Maize cob consists of rows of kernels, fertilized. Come on, man. Popcorn, likely one of the oldest to grow, characterized by a thick permanent cap. Bro, growing indigenous corn. This is indigenous, bro. Oh, people don't understand. People just be talking. Sorry. Apologies. Try to play. History.com. 7 foods developed by Native Americans. These dietary staples were cultivated over thousands of years by indigenous peoples of the Americas. When Christopher Columbus reached the Americas, he hoped the land would be rich with gold, silver, and precious metals. It's not the cat, but perhaps the New World's greatest treasure was its bounty of native food crops cultivated for millennia by indigenous Americans. Cultivated for millennia by indigenous Americans. Let's talk. As much as 3/5 of the world's agricultural crops originated in the Americas. As much as 3/5. I'd say it's all of them, but we'll be nice. 3/5 of the world's food crops originated in the Americas. Without the Columbian Exchange, there would be no tomatoes for Italian food, no hot chili peppers for Indian cuisine, and no dietary staples like potatoes, squash, beans, or corn. Again, no dietary staples like potatoes, squash, beans, and corn. So how could it be the Columbian Exchange is the first time these things went outside of the Americas, but yet these things are allegedly in Egypt, but Egypt is allegedly not here in the Americas. America is Egypt. If you want to go with your argument that these things were only in the Americas for millennia before Columbian Exchange, then that means these biblical narratives happened in the Americas where these foods were. Let's talk. I'm going with what y'all argument is. So if I go with y'all argument, then Genesis happened in America. Alright then, I'm good with it. I'm good with your argument. We can do that. We can say that. A lot of the domestication and breeding that is resulting in today's major food crops, the important initial work was done by indigenous people, says Jules Janik, an emeritus professor of horticulture at Purdue University. That was their contribution to the world. While indigenous diets and foodways are deeply impacted by European settlement, indigenous American foods also changed the world. Below are 7 foods that originated in the Americas. Maize. All countries, the book of Genesis, chapter 41, verse 57, and all countries came into Egypt to Joseph to buy corn. Because the famine was sore in all lands. Where Egypt get the corn? If by your argument all these things passed after the Columbian Exchange, then where is Egypt? That they had access to so much corn. Who was cultivating corn for millennia? The Native Americans were. Oh, Ghetto, you're crazy. Oh, Ghetto, you don't know what you're talking about. When the Spanish arrived in the Antilles, they described them a millet-like grain popular among the island natives, little more than a palm in length, ending in a point. The grains are about the form and size of peas. When ground, they are whiter than snow. This kind of grain is called maize. You can use maize to make hominy grits, corn to grind it up and make grits. If you don't know, that's what that is. The crop we know as corn was domesticated from wild teosinte grass as far back as 8,000 years ago in Mesoamerica. Teosinte. The maize grown in the Americas, Zaya maize, wasn't eaten fresh like sweet corn, but was allowed to dry on the stalk and then ground into flour for tortillas, cornbreads, and corn mush. They already was eating cornbread, Oh, I thought that was only a southern thing. Who are the southern folks really? A lot of people I know in the hood love them some corn chips. Who are these people really? From its origins in Central. Oh, you can't say that just because we eat cornbread and they ate cornbread that we the same people. Ghetto, you sound crazy. You right. People don't pass down their diet to one another. That's true. I don't know what I be thinking. From its origins in central Mexico, knowledge of maize production spread to all corners of North and South America. Maize cultivation was an anchor for nomadic tribes and supported the growth of massive Mesoamerican cities and empires like the Olmecs, Maya, Aztec, and Inca. The need to continuously improve the corn harvest led to agricultural innovations like terraced mountain fields in Peru and floating island gardens called chinampas in the shallow lake of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital. The earliest Native Americans to cultivate corn were the Pueblo people, allegedly, of the American Southwest, whose culture was transformed by the arrival of corn in 1200 BC. By 1000 AD, corn was a staple crop that sustained tribes like the Creek, Cherokee, and Iroquois. Maize seeds traveled back to Europe in 1494, and maize cultivation spreads with the expansion of the Spanish Empire, making it all the way to the Philippines and China by the 1550s. But all this started in America. 2. Beans. The ideal companion crop for maize was the nitrogen-fixing legume known as the common bean, or dry bean, Facilius vulgaris. Beans provided nitrogen-rich soil for maize, and the corn stalks provided natural support for the bean plant's climbing vines. But these savages figured out this concept of the three sisters and planting all these beans together, or additional beans as some tribes did. Wow, wow, wow. But more importantly, says Janik, a diet based on beans and maize is rich in essential proteins. Oh, hold up, I thought you can only get protein from meat. Yo, y'all whole system of thought is crumbling. How does that feel? How does it feel to know your whole system of thought is crumbling? I just want to know. But more importantly, says Yannick, a diet based on beans and maize is rich in essential proteins that neither food can provide on its own. Maize alone is not a perfect food, says Yannick. It's missing some amino acids, particularly lysine, which is found in beans. Beans are deficient in other amino acids, cysteine and methionine, which are found in maize. So when you eat beans on a corn tortilla, which was the basis of Aztec and Mayan diets, you have a complete protein food. You have a complete protein food that fuels empires. Is this how they were able to be such fierce warriors? They had enough protein to fight, build muscle mass, build strength, build dexterity, be limber, be athletic. Another game-changing legume of the New World was the peanuts, which originated in Brazil. Man, y'all be, ooh, it made its way to Africa through the Portuguese slave trade. And I like it. I like it. I like it. I want to keep this article. I like this. Like this. I like it. I like it. Squash, the three sisters. Maize, legumes, dry beans, and squash. The three sisters. The three sisters. Pumpkin gourds and other hard-skinned water squashes were part of the famous Three Sisters planting strategy practiced by Native Americans alongside beans and maize. Winter squash takes a long time to mature and the plant's broadleaf vines extend in all directions, providing a helpful ground cover that traps moisture and suppresses weeds for the corn and beans. But these savages figured this out. So many people, these uneducated, uncouth savages who deserved to be enslaved, figured all this out. Gourds and squash were prized by indigenous Americans for their nutrient-rich flesh, their protein-packed seeds, and their sturdy shells, which were dried and used as containers in water jugs. Potatoes. 8,000 years ago, around the same time as that maize was domesticated in Mexico, the humble potato was first cultivated high in the Andes Mountains of Peru. The starchy tuber doesn't look like a superfood, but contains a very essential vitamin. But contains every essential vitamin except A and D and are a significant source of protein. I thought you could only get protein. You can't get protein from... shit, dumb when y'all talk, man. Potatoes, along with maize and beans, were a staple crop of the Inca, who grew their vegetables on terrace plots cut into the steep Andean hillside that reduced erosion and conserved water. Tomatoes. Sweet potatoes originated in Central America. Come on, bro. Tomatoes, chili peppers, cacao. We're not going to talk about the billions of dollars that have been made off cacao. Bro, what are we doing? Disrespect. Just like the disrespect. It's cool. I know we just like the disrespect. I know some of y'all really don't be believing the stuff y'all say. I just like to say stuff. Gang, we're going to leave it there. I know my light's not the best right now. Appreciate everybody for rocking and vibing. I hope this was educational, informative, and enlightening to some degree. We'll start back at chapter 42 of Genesis at our next Bible study, unless another question comes up that we have to answer, and we'll do that, and we'll figure a way to work the questions into its own type of time slot, because I want to make sure we get through the book as we getting through it, because there's so many dope things we have to continue to learn and study and ask questions upon and push back against. And I am so thankful for you guys to hear me out. And if you as usual, you know where to get at me. I'm crazy. Talk to me, chat with me, tap in. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. Support the movement. Supports the movement. $. His ghetto point of view. Always thankful to everybody who contributes, even as low as $1, all the way up to $1,000. You guys make this thing so much easier to do, because we can't fly a rocket without the fuel. So thank you very much. Many blessings and much appreciated to everybody who finds value in what we share and feels that value should be exchanged for proper compensation. So thank you very much. Getting out of here, gang. Blessings to you and your family once again. Thankful to the Most High for all the blessings He continues to bestow on you and your family. And man. Words can't express how humbled I am by the continued blessings that I receive from the Most High each and every day. Peace and love.